The information shared on LightBody Radio is for educational and informational purposes only. The content of this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician, licensed healthcare provider, or qualified wellness practitioner with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or health goal. Dr. Lara may, her guests, and affiliates do not claim to cure, prevent, or treat any condition and are not responsible for any actions taken based on the information shared in this podcast. By listening to this podcast, you acknowledge that you are responsible for your own health decisions and that any actions you take based on the content are at your own discretion and risk. Thank you for tuning in to LightBody Radio.
Welcome to LightBody Radio, where science meets soul and healing gets multidimensional. I am your host, Dr. Lara May, functional medicine pharmacist, master intuitive Reiki channel, and certified life and health coach. Here we decode root causes, transmute stuck energy, and empower your full spectrum healing journey, body, mind, and light body. This isn't just wellness, it's awakening, grounded in science, guided by spirit, and designed for your evolution. Let's rise and radiate. Welcome to the next level of you. Hello and welcome to LightBody Radio. I am your host, Dr. Lara May, and today we have with us Kayla Girgen. She is a registered dietitian, certified personal trainer, and founder of, is it Sugar and Strength Academy?
It is, yes.
Okay, because there's a little plus sign, so I want to make sure. Which is an online wellness community helping women balance blood sugar and build strength one step at a time, which I love. She blends real life tools such as continuous glucose monitoring with accessible movement like rucking to help clients break free from diet extremes and feel strong both physically and mentally. Kayla's approach centers on progress over perfection and creating results that work in real life. Her upcoming book, Ruck Fit, shares how rucking became a catalyst for her reclaiming her physical and mental health, proving that fitness doesn't have to be complicated to be life-changing. I love it. That's beautiful. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much. I wish you could follow me around and do that introduction everywhere. Would you please? Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I didn't stumble very much through that one. So we got lucky. We both got lucky for that one.
Yes. All the pressure of flashbacks to grade school, reading out loud and looking ahead at what paragraph was going to be yours. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I never did well with that. I had a touch of ADD back then that was, because you're a girl from the 80s. So, never diagnosed.
Undiagnosed,
really.
right.
So yeah, I'm like off in left field and they're like, okay, you're next. And I'm like, I have no idea where we are.
Yes.
So, anyway, let's talk about you.
Yeah, sounds good.
Tell us about your journey, and I love too that you're very focused on that blood sugar balance piece and the metabolic piece on top of melding that with the activity.
Yeah, and it took me a while to get there. So I would say my journey to become a dietitian was not linear. I think what really led me down that path was struggling myself with that all or nothing thinking. It was either going to the gym for 2 hours a day or deep couch sitting. There was not a whole lot in between. And I think I see that mirrored in a lot of the women I work with now. It's I'm going to go all out or do nothing at all. And I think with something like continuous glucose monitoring, for example, that really helped me find that balance with food. But then in the fitness sense, once I discovered rucking, I heard about rucking on a podcast and I found that, and that's what really helped me find this balance versus always going to extremes, because I know that that's so tempting if we want to manipulate how we look or feel like we're going to, earn the calories that we eat or on the back end burn, whatever meal we felt like we shouldn't have. I feel like this just helped me find a good balance, both of these tools.
Yeah. And I would like to think that we've grown past the calories in, calories out mantra. But we just haven't, unfortunately. And I would like to think that we've grown past, like the just focus on being skinny or focusing on that one number on the scale. But I know that is not completely gone either. So,
Mhm.
there's so much, especially for women, within that dynamic of our hormone fluctuations. No matter what age we are, so much of our body composition really is dependent upon our hormone balance and or imbalance. I
Exactly.
mean,
And
yeah, yeah,
and
and
I
I
think
mean
how
that, yeah. Go
you
ahead.
mentioned body composition. I think that's huge. And that's, I think, one tool we can leverage too. I find that a lot of women who are able to get that data, women who are very data driven, once you have those numbers, it can be very empowering.
Oh,
Like
for
getting your
sure.
first body composition scan, maybe not so fun because you're like, I'm 35% fat. What? But then when you get the next one to compare and see that, okay, the scale might not be moving as fast as I want it, but I put muscle on, I've lost, primarily fat. That can be, I think, super empowering because you could weigh the same weight, but you're going to feel so much better in your clothes when you have a little bit more muscle or feel more tone. Like, I think that's what a lot of women are after versus, like you said, we have to almost unlearn all of the decades of dieting that we've
For
done.
sure.
And that takes a
Yeah.
lot of work to
Yeah.
tease a lot of that out.
Yeah, I mean, it's unlearning in our mind, our brain, but also in our body, because our body gets used to those extremes like you were talking about. So whether it's yo-yo dieting, whether it's um, you know, under eating for decades, being in calorie deficient state, that's actually really stressful for the body. And eventually, your body doesn't really know what to do. It gets confused. And so you do have to retrain it. And so tell us how you found rucking, and then, like, can it be such a powerful tool?
Yeah, I found rucking. I was listening to a podcast. This was mid-pandemic. I had been working in healthcare, and for any other healthcare workers, like, not a fun time to be in healthcare. So I felt like I was very much, burning the candle at both ends, being a hypocrite and not taking my own advice, like eating healthy and, getting your workouts in and getting good sleep. And I was just feeling very, I think, physically and emotionally worn down. And I heard about rucking. I was like, okay, well, I like to walk, but I think in a lot of ways, it doesn't feel like it's enough, or maybe enough to count, for example.
Mhm.
And rucking is essentially walking with weight. So you're going for a walk, you've got maybe a backpack on, or now I see a lot of weighted vests too, which is very applicable as well. And you get a ton of benefits with that. So you get a greater calorie burn in your workout, but it also helps with body composition. So thinking about, not necessarily weight loss, but more specifically fat loss, because you could be losing weight, but some of that could be muscle, and we don't want to lose muscle. So
Right.
rucking is a great way to apply that stimulus. It's a weight bearing exercise, so you get those muscle benefits. It's certainly not going to replace strength training, but then you also get great benefits like a greater calorie burn. You get bone density benefits as well. So you get that stimulus on your skeleton. And I think one thing for me personally was it got me outside. It got me out of my head. And that's really what I think kept me coming back, is just reconnecting with nature and seeing the seasons, all around you.
Yeah.
And getting outside, I think, is something that is underestimated too, because we're just all under fluorescent lights and in front
Oh,
of
yeah.
screens all day. And I think, what is it? 90% of us spend, or I should say, we spend 90% of our time indoors, but I feel like that's probably an underestimate.
Maybe. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, it definitely depends on the person. I live in a little unicorn area of the world where it's a very outdoor centered community, but even still, like with my job, it's still a challenge to get enough outside time. So for sure.
Yeah.
And I think it can be like that for a lot of people, even if you live in a beautiful place where lots of people are outside all the time doing all the fun things. And so for me, I actually found rucking when I was looking into training specifically for our backcountry hunts. And so my husband and I have been hunting elk in the backcountry, which means like off grid, not using pack animals. We are the pack animals when we're successful. And, like again, both of us are very outdoorsy. But there's something to be said for the challenge of carrying around a heavy backpack, like on a whether it's a backpacking, like overnight camping trip, or you're hunting or whatever it is, your body just needs to get used to carrying that weight. And so, rucking sort of came into my periphery from that perspective as like a preparatory and cross training tool. But it is like all those things that you said is so true, great for women and preventing bone loss, because it is a weight bearing exercise. And
it's low impact.
And
too,
it's low
so
impact. Yeah.
Mhm.
Because I was getting to that point where I had been a runner, which was a journey in and of itself, because I started out hating running. So I taught myself how to love running because I thought I wanted to be a triathlete. And I did that for a while. That was okay. But eventually my knees just started to not be so tolerant. And so I'm like, okay, well, I still want to get out there and do stuff. And I'm lucky enough to live in beautiful mountains. And so for me too, it's about, going uphill with that weight on your back as well. And of course, you don't have to start there for sure, but
yeah. And I think in your context too, like it's a great way, rucking, having that heavy backpack on to be able to prepare for your hunt or your kill that you're going to get. But I think that was one of my goals too, is to help rucking be a little bit more approachable, because we see it in a lot of, I don't want to say extreme, but where you're carrying, in your case, you're probably carrying almost half your body weight, when you get a successful hunt. And same with the military. So that's where rucking was born. I think there's a lot of intimidation where you see somebody army crawling through the mud with their ruck on, or, carrying an obscene amount of weight on their back, but really you don't have to carry half your body weight on your back to get the benefits. So that was I was hoping in my messaging to help make it a little bit more approachable, because I think it's a very entry level thing for men, for women, anyone who maybe isn't active. I feel like there's a very low barrier to entry, whether that's not being very physically fit, whether it's a cost perspective. I feel like you can start rucking, virtually without having to invest anything if you have the right things on hand. So it can be really easy to get started.
For sure. I definitely recommend it to any of my clients that are looking to add something, but they're intimidated by weights or the gym, or, or they think, well, I'm not strong enough to do anything that's going to be super impactful, which is a misnomer, but still it's a way to sort of open the door, because you're right. You really just need a backpack. And like for me, I have small sandbags. So I can either add or subtract weight really easily. And so for what I'll do is on average, I usually carry, between 20 and 30 pounds, depending on where I am in my season, as just like maintenance. And then maybe like one day a week, step that up a little and do like a 50-pound hike day.
That's what I call a sucky ruck. I try to get one sucky ruck a week. It's either really long distance or maybe it's a heavier load than usual, but it's nice to give your body that bit of challenge too. Mm-hmm.
Yes, but also so I think another important factor is to talk about, rest and recovery, and like you said, low impact. And so this is more gentle on the joints, but you are still getting, muscle mass building, bone density building, and cardiovascular impacts as well. So, yeah, I think it's great, especially, for middle-aged to older women too, that are looking to add something to their health and wellness journey.
Yeah, I had one gal I was messaging with. She had gotten a DEXA scan, so basically her bone mineral density, and her doctor had basically put fear in her, like, okay, you have osteoporosis, you can't do this, this, and this. So she couldn't do a lot of the things that she loved. Like, she was thinking, okay, I'll rejoin my CrossFit gym or do HIIT workouts or start running. And he's like, can't do any of those. So she actually had already a walking routine. She added some weight and kind of progressed that up. And that was one story I loved, because she went back a year later and her bone density looked amazing. Her doctor was happy, and that really, it helped her go from being very fearful of a lot of the activity, but it was a good on-ramp into other things to help build up that strength and that bone density. So I know a lot of times we hear like, okay, your bone density maxes out at this age, but I just want to let any woman or, man for that that matter know that it's not too late. And, with things like rucking or progressive overload in your weight training, you can certainly build that up. It's not like you're going to hit a ceiling. There's always so much to be gained from it.
Oh, for sure. And it's not always too just about supplements either. I feel like for a long time we got into this, and I say we, meaning just the health and wellness industry in general, got into this rut of saying, oh, just take some magnesium, take some calcium, take some vitamin D, you'll be fine. Instead of, really pushing and giving more weight and gravity to the weightlifting, the weight bearing exercises, whatever they may be for you. And come to find out, lo and behold, guess what? You can oversupplement. And if your body doesn't use what you're putting down your throat, so it is not without risk and consequence in and of itself either.
Thank you. I don't have to go on my calcium soapbox because you did it for me.
Oh, please. If there's anything you want to add, please do.
Well, I see it, like you said, you can't supplement your way to better bone health. And I think one thing that gets underestimated, especially in the calcium realm, is vitamin D. So you have a lot of people who are walking around vitamin D deficient, but then taking a calcium supplement, like you said, like more isn't always better. And you need the nutrition, but then you also need that stimulus or that specifically that weight bearing exercise. And a lot of times, like you said, it's like, okay, get your 1200 milligrams of calcium, but what are we doing to help stimulate that skeleton? Because your skeleton isn't a static tissue. It's always tearing down and building back up. And it's really up to you how dense that is.
Yeah, for sure. And just also always remembering that our body is a concert of all the different instruments playing together. So it's not just, I'm going to take my calcium citrate by itself. Like, how many decades did doctors tell us to do that? Or, whoever in the Western medicine realm, and they were just doing the best that they could with the tools that we had at the time. Like, okay, I will give you that. However, now that we know better, let's do better. And so, yeah, let's test a vitamin D level and see where you are. And if we need to, let's supplement for sure. But let's also maybe look at the micronutrients, the vitamin K levels, and, our absorption levels. If you're taking a PPI or, an H2 blocker, if you have, some sort of gastric issue like GERD, heartburn, if you're taking one of those, then maybe your body's not even absorbing the supplements that you're taking every day. So it's so important to try to get your nutrients from real food, because that comes with all those coenzymes. And I'm preaching to the choir because you're an RD, but
yeah. Can I add one more thing before we, before our calcium supplement monologue? I will say too, when it comes to calcium, like I had mentioned Adexa, that is a great way to get your bone density. Cause I see a lot of times where my clients will come to me with blood work and they're like, oh, look, my calcium's great. And I was like, that's your blood calcium, and your body is very picky. It will leach from your skeleton and your bones to keep that blood calcium regulated. So even if your calcium looks great on a blood test, for example, it is not really telling the true story of, okay, what do we have stored in your skeleton or bone density? So there, I'm done. No.
Well, now I have one more thing to add, because it'll take from that, because calcium is one of the main, besides magnesium, one of the main cofactors that's used in the muscle contraction. And we're talking all of your muscles. So your heart is a muscle. Obviously, you have muscle wrapped around your legs and your arms, but, your GI tract is smooth muscle. All of those things have to make contractions. So if you're deficient somewhere, then like you said, it's got to come from somewhere else. And so and again, it all works together in a beautiful concert, hopefully, not a disjointed avant-garde.
Yeah. And it is amazing what the human body does. You just think of bone on its own, or like you said, the GI tract. Like, we have thousands and thousands of processes going on just for us to have this conversation, and everything that's going on under our skin. It's wild.
Yeah. So what we haven't touched on yet, let's compare and contrast the long-term fitness benefits for rucking compared to other cardio things that our audience might be more familiar with, like running, even walking or cycling.
Yeah, I would say rucking, because it is low impact. When you're looking at it, it's something that you're able to do, I would say, in an acute setting, so something more short term, you're able to have maybe a little bit more endurance because you're not taxing those muscles or their joints. So because it's low impact, and a lot of times you're using more of those endurance muscle fibers, especially for women. Women are, usually have a lower center of gravity. They have more endurance or type 1 muscle fibers. So they are excellent ruckers. Women are built to ruck in a sense. And that can be one thing that, in again, the short term, you're able to maybe ruck longer, but because you're not wearing and tearing on your joints, I feel like it's something that you can do, maybe it's 2 days a week. Maybe, I'm in Minnesota, so summers I'm soaking up everything I can. Maybe I'm rucking 5 to 6 days a week, but I think it's important to say that you can be really flexible. You don't have to ruck hard every day. So it's good to have that variability. Like you said, you have maybe your base weight. Sometimes I'm going lighter, sometimes I'm going heavier, and it's something you're able to incorporate. I would say long-term for me personally, it's something that's, a majority of my cardio is rucking because I hate running. It's something that I've come to terms, like maybe I'll never run again unless I'm really forced to. But I will say that you're able to really get some good, I would say, low intensity, steady state cardio. If you're in mountains, like you said, that terrain can make a big difference too in terms of that intensity. So getting some elevation is one of those things, aside from weight, that you can really ramp up that intensity pretty quickly as well. And then we talked about body composition a little bit. So in terms of body composition, you can really help, I would say, if you're somebody who maybe struggles to put on muscle, rucking is maybe a good entry level into that. And then it can help preserve that muscle, but then also focus on fat loss. If you're someone who maybe weight loss is a part of your, goal system, it's something where you're able to really get the best of both worlds in terms of body composition.
Yes. And I think this will be a good place too to remind people that your bigger muscle groups burn more calories for you. And so I think that's also probably some of the great benefit from it. Like, your legs are what's moving you either down the street or up the hill or whatever, right? So big muscle groups there, the better in shape those are, the more that they're at baseline, you're going to have a better basal metabolic rate, a more efficient calorie burn. You're going to have that better, fat to muscle ratio. And yeah, just feeling better, feeling stronger, feeling more on balance and secure, because that can definitely be an issue as we get older. Sometimes balance definitely can start to wane, unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly. And you had mentioned rucking uphill earlier, rucking downhill. Well, I suppose once you go up, you got to come down, right? But I will say, usually depending on your trail. Yeah. But I will say rucking downhill is very advantageous too, just especially for some of those stabilizer muscles and working on balance. But being that you brought that up too, I think maybe distinguishing between using something like a ruck, a weighted backpack, versus something like a weighted vest. I would say both of them are weighted walking, but something like wearing a ruck or a rucksack is going to help give you some posture benefits. Whereas something like a weighted vest, you might not get as many posture benefits since it's not pulling your shoulders back. With a weighted vest, it's more evenly distributed in the front and the back, but it is nice for somebody who maybe is a little bit more wobbly on their feet, like you mentioned. So if you struggle with balance, a weighted vest can be a good option since you're not having to lean or do a little bit more counterweight. So I think that they both certainly have their benefits in different settings. Another thing to consider is something like a weighted vest. You're buying a lot of times in fixed weight. So maybe it's 8 pounds, maybe it's 15 pounds. So if you want to change your ruck weight or the weight that you're walking with, you have to buy a whole new vest. Whereas you had mentioned, if you're using something like a rucksack, you can swap out sandbags, weight plates a little bit more easily. So in that sense, something like a ruck is more scalable, I would say.
And don't forget too that you can also use trekking poles, for extra balance. And especially once you get into, I would say, those heavier weights, and you're on uneven terrain, if you're, on a hiking trail, then it's actually probably safer to have trekking, at least have them with you, so that if you all of a sudden like get a little teeter-totter, you can like put one down as to save yourself, so you don't go catapulting either up or down the hill. But because I know I've definitely done that, like gotten a little too fast going downhill, and then all of a sudden, a rock rolls and now I'm flying too. So
yes, I've seen some really cool telescoping options where the trekking pole, like it's telescoping, so you could stow them in your rucksack or even clip them on the outside too.
Yeah, for sure. Those are, and some of this also comes from the backcountry skiing and snowboarding world as well. Like tools that we've been using for decades have now started to translate. And for the longest time, my husband made fun of me because I just took my backcountry snowboarding poles with me because they were telescoping and they're carbon fiber, so they're super light. But they had the snow baskets on the end instead of the feet. As he's like, "We've got to get you some proper trekking poles. You look a little ridiculous." Like, I don't care.
Yeah, it works, right? Yeah.
Whatever. But yeah, I mean, so there are other things out there that can also help you. But this is also, again, not to say that you absolutely have to have all of these things either. And again, just to reiterate, this is why rucking is such a great entry level sort of gateway activity to try.
Yeah. And I would say too, like thinking about that, like any strength exercise, it's something you want to progress in slowly. So if you're relatively sedentary, maybe that starts with getting some steps under your feet before you're adding weight to your walk. So just like anything, you want to ease into it to help minimize that risk for injury. And like thinking about starting weights, I would say usually women, depending on your fitness level, 10 to 15 pounds is usually a pretty comfortable starting weight. Maybe do that 2 or 3 max times a week, and then kind of ease up gradually over time. For men, maybe that's 10 to 20 pounds. It really depends where you're at, but always err on the side of caution, because I think one thing that surprises people is because rucking can straighten you out or change your gait or your posture, you might feel little cricks and creaks like in your shoulder or your hips, like once you're straightening out those biomechanics and getting everything in good motion again. So air light and ease up over time.
Well, yeah, and just even engaging your core more, because that weight is distributed differently than it would be with you just walking with your normal body weight. And again, it's a great thing, but yeah, just be aware, start low, go slow, as we like to say in the pharmacy world. So
yes. And you don't have to like get up to 50 pounds. I would say a lot of times it's, maybe if you're looking at an endpoint goal or somebody that has like a big rucking goal ahead, maybe it's 25-30% tops of body weight. That's usually top end for a lot of people, but you might not get there, and you don't have to ruck with 50 or 100 pounds on your back. So just know that it could be 10 pounds, it could be 20 pounds. You're getting, doubling down on benefits regardless.
Yeah. And just listen to your body too. And I mean, I'll definitely learn this the hard way. That first year that we had to carry an elk out, we're like, oh, well, we want to make as few trips as possible, so we're just going to pile the weight on. And as long as we can stand up with the backpack, we'll be fine. Oh my gosh, your body will definitely tell you when you have too much weight on it. Like for me, by the time we got to the end of our hike, like my knees were hurting, even my feet. Like with every step, I could feel just like the stress on the bones of my feet. And I had great boots, so it was not a footwear problem. I was carrying way too much weight. So it's
in that sense too, once your posture starts to go, then you tend to fatigue faster, then you're at risk for injury. So do you have any idea like what that load ended up being, out of curiosity?
I think for me, I was at 70 because my husband was approaching 90.
Yeah.
It was a lot. And we're not big people. I'm 5'4", he's like 5'10". So
and it's awkward. It's not like you have nice, neat weight plates in your backpack. No. You have hunks of animal.
Yeah. I mean, and we have good backpacks. And so they're, like with the waist strap and, the chest strap and all the adjustments and everything, but still it's just a lot, and it does become bulky. And so now, and for us, it was a 4,000 vertical, downhill. from where we had to bring the elk off the mountain. And so that was, again, just a really long downhill with all that weight on your joints with every single step. So lesson learned, do not do that again.
Yes. How many trips did you end up doing?
We ended up doing 2, and we were lucky enough that a pack group did come through with some llamas, and they took a 50-pound load for us. Nice. So that enabled us, because we would have had to do 3 if not that. So
Oh, I bet your body was so happy once
yeah.
you
We gave him beer and food and
yes, nice. He was well rewarded.
Yes, yes. All right. So what else? What have we not talked about that you want to bring forward about this?
I will say, talking about posture, a couple cues. I would say if you're just getting into rucking, you had mentioned core strength and you're kind of engaging your core. Before you even step off, one thing that can be really helpful is almost thinking about absorbing just like a light punch in your core. So you're just kind of tightening those stabilizer muscles around your spine. That can be really helpful. And I will say too, if you find that you're leaning too far forward, that's a good indication that maybe scale the weight back and slowly ramp up over time. Because if you find that you're leaning forward, that usually is a pretty good indication, and also how that weight is secured. So you want that weight high and tight and not bouncing around in your pack. So if you're using just like an old backpack, for example, maybe it has like an interior or a laptop pocket. Depending on that backpack, it might kind of hit your lower back. So it might take a little MacGyvering to maybe cinch that weight up or adjust the straps to get that weight maybe closer to, mid shoulders or mid back, and making sure it's not flopping around. So if you want to do it cheap, you can get bubble wrap or towels. When I first started, I just wrapped a dumbbell in a towel, threw it in a backpack, but you might notice these little corners of the dumbbell hitting you in awkward places. So it can be helpful to have something like ruck plates, or like you mentioned, the sandbags can be really helpful to help just carry more comfortably, because when you are able to stabilize the weight or position it in a way where you're able to ruck with better posture, you can oftentimes scale that weight up and ruck with better form, but then also ruck heavier, and then the benefits kind of increase over time as well. So I will say a couple posture cues. Something like a traditional rucksack can be helpful too, because they have that weight pocket and you're just sliding your weight plates in, and it's keeping things right where it needs to be. And you had mentioned the hip belt. That's one of my favorite features. I just got one last summer. Game changer. Like it really changes like that weight distribution, so you can cinch it closer to your stomach or your kind of hip, and that can help you ruck a lot more comfortably too.
Yeah, for sure. And, it's trial and error. So be patient with yourself, be willing to try different things, and just be curious about it. Don't pigeonhole yourself into something rigid and be like, oh, well, this didn't work, I quit.
Yes, exactly. And I would say too, there's like a few different levers. So weight usually is the most straightforward thing if you want to increase or decrease intensity. We talked about incline, and then the next one is distance. So those are the 3 big ones. I would say don't try to take on all of them at once. Play with one variable at a time, because I tend to see a couple different camps. I tend to see women where they're a little bit more timid. They're nervous to maybe add more weight on. And then I see men going too heavy, too far, too fast. And then you put yourself at risk for injury. So like you said, listening to your body and trying to be a little bit more intuitive, like, okay, I think next time I could add 5 pounds or whatever that might be, but trying not to, maybe double your distance and add weight at the same time. So using a little bit of caution there.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much. And where can people find you on the socials?
Yes, I am at Kayla Girgen RD on all the things. I would say I'm most active on Instagram. Website is kaylagirgenrd.com. You can find more about my book, Ruck Fit, and any of my programs there as well.
Cool. And is your book on the old Amazon?
It is Amazon. It's Barnes and Noble. It's wherever books are sold. Yes.
Okay. Beautiful. Beautiful.
Yes.
And anything else before we finish up today?
I think that is everything. I will add I feel like I have to end with something, right? One of the biggest mistakes that I see is people just not doing it. It can be, again, a little intimidating. I get a lot of pictures or text messages of, look, my weight vest arrived, or I got my rucksack. And I was like, yay, can't wait to see the picture of your first ruck. And then follow up a couple weeks later and they're like, oh, I'm waiting for the weather to be right, or, it's not perfect conditions, I would say just get out there and give it a try, because once you get that first ruck in and under your belt, I feel like it's so much easier. You're going to feel so strong and empowered, and it just feels like you feel like $1 million, I feel like, when you get a good ruck session in.
Yeah, it's really good for, the endorphins, and just to like being outside, getting, all the good sunlight and the fresh air and being in nature, and or maybe you're an urban rucker. That's fine too. Put your earbuds in and just go for it.
Exactly. Like you're a runner, you can get a rucker's high. It's like the same thing.
Yeah. Maybe take it over to like the local high school stadium and do some steps.
Yeah.
Live in a flatter place, like there's so many different things that you can take this to. So yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, thank you. It was so nice to have you on. And definitely everyone check out the website, KaylaGirgenRD.com, and then Kayla Girgen RD on the socials. And of course, her book, Ruck Fits, on, again, all the places books are sold. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. All right, everybody. We'll catch you on the flip side. Thank you for joining me on LightBody Radio, where functional medicine meets intuitive healing and transformation happens on every level. If this episode resonated with you, please like, share, and if you're ready to go deeper, visit drlaramay.com to book a functional medicine consultation or an intuitive healing session. Whether you need to rebalance your body, clear your energetic blocks, or reconnect with your soul's purpose, I've got you. You can also follow me on Instagram or TikTok at Dr. Lara May for daily inspiration, energy updates, and healing tools. Remember, your healing is multidimensional, and so are you. Until next time, honor your body, trust your intuition, and activate your light.